lot of times that fourth game of the preseason is sometimes some of the funnest to watch because you've got a lot of those guys who are trying to make the team going out and playing so hard. So I think I agree with you. I think it should be less, but 3 seems like the magic number.
Hey, Mo, on another overreaction that became a distraction, we talked about it on the show earlier, but I wanted to get your thoughts on a couple things here. One of the things is the Benjamin Newton encounter. It seemed as if Cam Newton just wanted to have a conversation with him, but Benjamin didn't want to have any part of it. They did not knock elbows, if you will, but Benjamin wasn't very happy to talk with Newton. Do you think that was an overreaction by the media?
Yeah, because, part of it, Cam was all calm and it seemed like, but, I think that, Cam probably could have talked to him not out on the field, you know what I mean? They could have scheduled a time to meet, but we don't know the story of what happened while they were together with the Panthers. So it's very likely that, there was a huge issue that we don't know about. So I think it's a huge overreaction. It was nothing. Both guys are too smart, I think, to get themselves suspended, especially in the first preseason game. I think it was showmanship on both parts. I mean, Benjamin saying the stuff he said leading up to the first preseason game, obviously knew he was going to get a reaction. Cam doing it on the field, knowing he probably wouldn't get a handshake or anything like that, was showmanship. So I think it was a whole lot to do about nothing.
So one more thing about overreactions, and then we'll let Rick talk with you a little bit about fantasy football before we wrap it up and put a bowl on it. Again, at the very, very beginning of this show, before in my opening monologue, I said we're not going to make this a story this year. It's just we got to talk about it because it's somewhat talking about. We are going to be done talking about this, but here's what I think: if you're a partner network, if the NFL is paying you millions of dollars for broadcast rights, in my opinion, you are then employed, contractually employed by the NFL. If the NFL tells the media stop covering the national anthem, period. Fox did that on their own. They made the choice that this year we're not going to even air the national anthem. But yet you have these other networks, these other mainstream networks that go out there, and I think I read it was only 35 players across the entire NFL. Out of all the NFL players, only 35 players took a knee. But if you were to watch the mainstream media, you would have thought everybody was doing it. And, of course, our president, Firestarter Trump, which is I will probably get crucified for this, but I am agreeing with him that it's wrong to kneel during the national anthem. But that's just my thoughts. But we know that he's going to use that to fuel his base, to fan the fire. If the media did not give Trump the fire to fan, he would not do it. And Matt came on at the beginning of the show and says, well, you need to ban Donald Trump from the NFL. He's not the one that's ruining the NFL. The NFL is ruining itself. So let's talk about this. Let's get it out. Let's get done with it. But the media has got to stop putting the focus on these very few lone wolves that are doing the kneeling of the national anthem.
Well, for the media, though, it's still a story. When you said about them being an employee of the NFL, I disagree with that just because these media companies pay the NFL a fortune to air these games. So, if it's looked at like that, if anything else, the NFL would be an employee of them because, these media companies are paying billions of dollars to the NFL to run them. So at that point, I think it's their option to show whatever they want. I didn't pay attention to it till the day after. So during the games, it's still nothing that I'm paying attention to. I haven't cared about the issue in over a year. But the problem is that when the president says something about it, obviously it's going to become a story then. So at that point, the media has to cover it. The situation had pretty much taken care of itself last year. Towards the end of the year, 1 or 2 guys were doing it, and that was it. And so the NFL, fueled the flames a little bit more when they made their rule. It didn't involve the Players Association. Every time, you mentioned it, 35 guys, compared to the hundreds of a couple of years ago, and then the president chooses to focus on that, that's fine. That's his prerogative. He's the president. But then it gives even more light to that because of the voice that he does have. So I think if everybody would just stop talking about it, the situation would probably take care of itself.
Totally agree. Rick-riggin, our executive producer, our fantasy football preview we've been talking about. Rick, you've got the microphone to talk some fantasy football with Mo before we wrap it up here.
Yeah, Mo, earlier we was talking about your fantasy football strategies, and the league changes every couple of years, and how you draft your fantasy football players. And now the league is really running back and wide receiver heavy, really deep. A lot of good to great receivers and backs. But there's only a handful now of elite quarterbacks, good to elite quarterbacks. So has the strategy might have shifted these past couple of years, and this year especially, to maybe go back to taking a quarterback in your first round as opposed to trying to pick up an AB from Pittsburgh or your Le'Veon Bell or Todd Gurley first. You might want to try to get some guys like that in your second round. It's just the decrease in good to great quarterbacks, maybe shifting things towards taking a quarterback in round one.
No, just because I still think even the bad quarterbacks are going to throw for a lot of yards. I mean, I think whoever plays in Cleveland is going to throw for a lot of yards just because that's where the league is skewed with the new rules on defense of the contact and the helmet rule. I think the teams are going to be even more apt to pass. So, I mean, I'm still looking for the guy who's going to score me the most points to draft first. And a lot of times it's going to be a top flight wide receiver or it's going to be a guy, a running back. So, and with the reemergence of the running back, it seems like that's probably, where people are going to focus the most. You'll still have people who want to draft a quarterback first, and that's fine. It's never been my strategy, unless there's a guy who's just so far above the rest. But to me, there are so many guys you could take. I mean, I used Blake Bortles a lot last year and scored a lot of points. When my top guy went down, Blake Bortles still scored me points because that's where the league's at right now. I think, there's going to be a lot of guys. I think Josh Allen's going to score a lot of points, and he's not super. So, no, my strategy is still to draft who's going to score the most points first. And, quarterbacks by default are going to get you points. So I'm still going wide receiver, running back at the top.
Hey, Mo, let me ask you this real quickly when we're talking about quarterbacks. Baker Mayfield, I think, is going to be the quarterback there in Cleveland. But you have two quarterbacks that are trying to show dominance. And you may have seen this on the various news outlets and of course, Hard Knocks did a story as well. And we made a great point about Baker Mayfield being a walk-on to have ever won the Heisman and to be the first-round draft pick. And he comes into Cleveland, and, you heard some of the things that were said over the week there in the Cleveland locker room. You've got two quarterbacks that are trying to establish leadership and gain control of that locker room. If you're a Cleveland Brown fan or a fantasy football fan of Baker Mayfield, you've got to be excited.
Well, if I'm a Cleveland fan, I'm excited because for so long Cleveland hasn't had a competent starting quarterback, and now all of a sudden, they've got two. So, I think that if I'm Baker Mayfield or Tyrod Taylor, either one at this point, I think is a good choice. If I'm a Cleveland Brown fan, I'm excited regardless because I finally got competent quarterback play.
Rick-riggin, executive producer of The Balance, you got the last word of the day, if you will. Any question, if you will, and then we'll do our thumbs up, thumbs down poll, and then we'll call it a day. Go right ahead.
No, I'm all out of questions. I think I've burnt them all out this past hour.
The past hour, okay. Well, guys, thumbs up or thumbs down poll. After watching Andrew Luck in the preseason, preseason first game, first hit, thumbs down, Andrew Luck makes it through the entire 16 games and gets us to at least 9 wins. Rick, thumbs up or thumbs down?
Oh, that's a big thumbs down. He won't even approach. He won't even play 9 games this year, and the Colts will be no more than a 6-win team. Big thumbs down.
Mo.
Yep, might have to agree. Thumbs down.
I'm going to be the minority. Thumbs up until I'm proven wrong the other way.
He ran for like a 5 or 6 yard scramble play so he could get shot in a preseason game, which is what you not want to see. So if he keeps doing that, he's not even going to make it to the regular season.
See, I disagree. We wanted to see that hit. We did want to see that hit.
You don't want to see Andrew Luck taking pops on a 5 yard scramble play in preseason.
Well, for that game we did. You make a valid point, but for that game we did. So I'm going to go thumbs up just because I'm going to stir the soup a little bit. Mo, where can people find your work in your masterpieces, sir?
On Twitter at Mo Radio Show.
All right, buddy. We look forward to and as you know, we've got our college football Breaking Rank show starting back up on August the 22nd. Hopefully you can be a part of it. And on September 1st, put this in your calendar, 2 hours of college football talk. And certainly we're going to be talking a lot about Notre Dame and Michigan. A lot of big games coming up, so hopefully you can join us on that, sir.
I will do my best.
All right, buddy. You have yourself a good weekend.
All right, guys.
Mo for the BS Sports Show. Always good to have him on. He's just fun to talk to, but he's got a lot going on, too, so sometimes it's hard to catch him exactly at the time that he said he was going to call. Rick, one more final plug for Breaking Rank, and we got a new segment coming up that we're just going to tease a little bit, but I think it's going to be a fun segment, and I think it's going to be a good opportunity to do that. Of course, we're going to be having – I know you're in charge of our social media. I know you're going to be putting polls up, so make sure people get on there and vote on our polls and so forth. But Breaking Rank coming up on August 22nd. That's a Wednesday. Every Wednesday night at 8 o'clock, we're going to give everyone a full double scoop of college football. Rick?
That's right. Your midweek dose of college football. Callers encouraged. That'd be 917-889-8516 for all your college football questions and needs. Links will be up to listen to the show. Of course, we're on iTunes and Stitcher, TuneIn, all the favorites. So it's easy to find us.
Absolutely. And let's get a final place. Where can people find the work and masterpieces of John Slapperjohn?
Be found at Riggin_Rick on Twitter and IUrish. That is a cross between IU basketball and Notre Dame football. IUrish.com.
All right, buddy. We'll get with you soon, very soon.
All right. Thanks for having me on.
All right, Rick. Rick-Riggin, our executive producer, always adds a lot to the show. He does a lot of work behind the scenes, and we really do appreciate his hard work. My name is tom-marquis, El Presidente. That's it, folks. We're going to wrap it up and put a bow on it. We have come to the final buzzer. Be sure to follow us on our social media at T-Balance, and we're everywhere, as Rick said. You can find us in the podcast format. So if you're listening to the podcast, make sure that you hit the subscribe button. My name is tom-marquis, El Presidente. Don't drink and drive. It isn't cool. I'm out of here. Deuces.
Join us next week for The Balance. In the meantime, check us out on Twitter, T-Balance, or Facebook, The Balance, or online at www.thebalanceonline.com.